And finally, for our closing keynote, who better than the global leader for supply chain at Kearney? I'd like to introduce P.S. Subramaniam, who is the partner out of their Kearney's Dallas office and leads their global supply chain practice. So thank you, P.S.
Thank you. Thank you, Anaga and Vipul, for inviting Kearney and inviting me to this forum. I appreciate it. So we are a global management consulting firm. And for those that don't know what management consulting is, we work with our clients to improve their performance. And the work that we do at Kearney is predominantly in global supply chains. And so this notion of smart supply chain and how do we make the world a better place and how do we, in the process of doing that, help our companies turn a profit is our primary focus. I'm joined by a couple of my partner colleagues here today, and hopefully the next few minutes will be interesting because I know that I'm standing between you and lunch. So that's always a difficult place to be. So Joel said earlier we should start with humor. I think we should. You know, while there's a Dilbert joke here on the wall, raise your hands if you have a complete understanding of everything that's smart supply chain happening in the world today. It's impossible to do that, and we'll kind of explore a little bit as to why that's impossible to do that. But it can also be being aware of the places that are of importance to you as a startup founder, or you as a VC, or you as a client can mean disproportionate value. Things are fun and games until they stop becoming fun and games. I'm going to give you two examples of companies. One, a storied brand. You would know them. They're based in Connecticut. We were not advising them in any capacity, but we were in the room when they made an all-in bet on predictive analytics. That storied brand was on the brink of bankruptcy because of investing in that. They were a few years too early. I spent some time at a small cell phone company called Nokia. Well, we went the other way. We took too late. We were too late to realize that the cell phone business had evolved from not being a hardware company anymore, but being an application-oriented company. And so again, things are fun and games until they stop being fun and games. Some of my panelists earlier reflected on rate of innovation. Supply chain is no longer a physical supply chain anymore. Supply chain is a digital supply chain already, and it has been for some time. Now, for those trying to strain to see the chart and the rate of innovation cycles, I was trying to explain this to my 17-year-old son. He didn't understand any of it, so let me try this other technique. The song that reached 5 billion views on social media, does anyone know what that is? The first time ever. 5 billion views is a big deal. It's 60% of the world's population listening to the song. Does anyone know what that is? Despacito by Louis Fonsi. My 17-year-old son knew that instinctively. He told me that. I grew up in the 80s. The song that I remember the most from that generation was Billie Jean. Do you know how long it took for Billie Jean to get to 5 billion views? Does anyone want to venture a guess? 20 years? 32 years. Well, I actually did not know that. So the philosopher of our time, ChatGPT, is very convenient in answering these questions. 32 years, 5 months, and 24 days. So that represents the rate of innovation cycle and adoption. In music, I mean, in our lifetime, we've seen vinyl records to cassette tapes to CDs to MP3 players to now streaming. All of that happened in a span of a few years. Supply chain, too, is digital. And almost every company, every client of ours can track today exactly what is in a container of a ship coming from China to the US, and if they want to postpone that or prepone that. Imagine that. That is very commonplace. So supply chains are indeed digital, and the rate of innovation cycle has accelerated. I was asked by Anaga and Vipul to talk about a few trends that startup companies might be interested in to figure out what are the areas to invest in. Now, actually, our very first speaker from Qualcomm, I was taking notes to make sure that nothing I said contradicted anything they said, but it doesn't. It actually matches almost perfectly. The one trend we don't have here is the acceleration of sustainability in our client supply chain, which our speakers from earlier in the day talked about. And that is also indeed true. It's accelerated by activism from the governments and compliance to governmental requirements. But two examples. So these, again, facts and data. Actually, I should have recognized that as the only consultant in this panel, I'm the only one using slides. So again, a lot of charts and numbers. But maybe two examples to bring this to life. One of our clients has got a large manufacturing factory in Long Island, New York. They make prestige beauty products. That factory requires about 20,000 people a shift to run. It is impossibly hard to get labor in Long Island, New York. Even if they've tried and they've been to the local community colleges, even if they can get people interested in manufacturing, people find it more accretive to work at the Amazon warehouse down the street because it pays more. They have no choice but to use robotics. To use robotics that erstwhile people did 2 years ago. Now, the work that the robots do are really cutting edge, and it's not because they ever envisioned that. It is a necessity for them to run their plant to use robotics. The other example is additive manufacturing. I was at a Kearney event, and there was a former Kearney colleague that works in the medical hardware business. And we used to, when additive manufacturing first came, 3D manufacturing first came about, we thought car parts, automotive aftermarket replacement parts would get additive manufacturing. We really thought everything could use it. Well, in reality, it's hard to make money on additive manufacturing. However, this company, the person showed me a small, it looks like a really small device that is implanted in the spine of people that have back problems. You know, slip disc is a very common thing. It's in all our families. We spend so much time sitting down that it's hard to not have that. And this company implants that. It's made of titanium. The serrations of this disc are matched to the individual spine. That is the perfect application of additive manufacturing to make money. All of these innovations are there all around us. The art is how do you figure out what makes profitable business sense for you and for your portfolio companies and for your clients. And that's a little bit about the story that we are going to say in the next couple of pages or the next few minutes. So we at Kearney partner with the World Economic Forum. We have been their consistent supply chain partner of choice for many years now. And this is an image of the question that answers, what are the future technologies that will impact supply chains, particularly manufacturing, future of production? Just in the future of production, we have 60 technologies that are about to get mature and at scale. There is a lot of noise out there. So if you were a supply chain practitioner, you are a professional trying to pitch to a supply chain client of yours, just recognize that there isn't enough investments to go around to fund all of these innovations. Now, as my earlier story said, you got to be just right. You can't be too late, you can't be too early. So how does one go about figuring out which of these innovations make sense to be invested in, or which of these do you just wait for your critical mass to cross the chasm? We have a methodology that we've used with our clients. This is the bread and butter of what I do, of enabling our clients to figure out which innovations matter and which innovations don't, or where do you wait. On the face of it, it seems fairly straightforward and simple, but it can be quite profound. First of all, I'm probably the first one in the day to say this. I'm surprised that I'm the first one in the day to say this. Basic business principles matter. Profitability matters. We are in an era of the highest interest rates in 20 years. And companies, we have a client that is a client we cannot name, but you would know this person. He's on TV a lot. He told us one time, why do I care about working capital? Money is free. Well, today, money is not free. And it costs companies a lot of money, especially in capital intensive. We heard from Tesla earlier, in capital intensive businesses. We heard from Rahul about semiconductor foundries. They matter a lot. And so the basic business rules of profitability matters is very much alive. Portfolio of ideas happens to be the winner. For every company, there are going to be a handful, ideally measured in 5 to 10 ideas, that could be your next business enabler. There's one client of ours that we have worked with over many years, where we have tried this portfolio of choices. These are all related to digital supply chain innovations. Very specifically, planning software has seen an explosion of innovation in the last 3 years. Today, supply chain planning is done in leading companies fundamentally differently than they were 3 years ago. Innovation resides in manufacturing. I talked about robotics earlier. Innovation resides in procurement and trying to get spend cubes done in an automated way. It resides in all elements of supply chain. This particular client tried 10 innovations and piloted them simultaneously as a portfolio, and tried to get business adoption and tried to get the business stakeholders invested in experimentation, and 2 of those survived deployment, and 2 of these scaled. One of them became a competitive differentiator. When they selected the 10, they weren't sure which was going to be that one. In fact, they were prepared for none of them to be viable. But one of them did become a competitive differentiator. And that is the example that strikes me and our colleagues as a winning formula. If you bet the farm on something that's a technology that's too nascent, that's dangerous. You try all of them, it's noise. Everybody knows how difficult it is to shake investment resources from our clients. And the portfolio approach of starting small, failing fast, scaling what works, and getting organizational buy-in as you go seems to be at least one formula of what we believe works. So again, I try to accelerate my my prepared remarks, and if you have questions, I'd love to engage with a few of you in the room with questions. But I would like to leave you with, again, the 3 things that I started with. Success is knowing that supply chain is already digital. If you are still working with the premise that digital supply chain is the problem of tomorrow, it's no longer the case. There is a lot of noise. There is focus needed, and figuring out what are you going to focus on and how to do that is going to be important. And for those select few that have figured it out, they're going to be your next generation companies of value. I'll leave you with one thought. I think it's universally known that fear is a much more memorable thing than love. So I'll leave you with one thought. $400 billion will be invested in the post-pandemic world to transform supply chains. Remember that, because 2 years from now you can keep me to account. Conservatively, $400 billion will be invested in transforming supply chains. 80% of that investment will not be hitting its business case. 80% of that $400 billion will fail to hit the business case that was designed for that investment. If you can be the select few that are helping your clients or your portfolio companies or yourselves be in the other 20%, there's a lot of money to be made. That's the, in closing, that's the image I'd like to leave you with. If there are questions, I think I'm happy to take it, and hopefully, Anaga, we made up the time to make up for the delayed start here. Thank you.